Hi, I just watched this awesome video on YouTube that delved into this content creator who's apparently quite large comparatively, and she kind of promotes and promulgates this pernicious narrative concerning what feminism is. And I've wanted to discuss this for a while, actually, but never really found the right way and the right circumstance to kind of contextualize it. So I want to sort of address it within the context of her video and this kind of false dichotomy and this sort of false equivalences that she makes appertaining to feminism and tradwives, that they're not equal and opposite. Because what kind of bothers me about her, Misha, is that she kind of promotes herself as if she's taking the middle ground. So the people that support her can kind of say, like, hey, she's just independently thinking about the circumstance and has come away with a relatively neutral kind of perspective. And so she's obviously, super intelligent and has this kind of non-biased, interesting kind of perspective that's intellectual and therefore valuable. But I think in trying to take on this mantle of being this neutral kind of figure who's detached from the circumstance and therefore able to kind of assiduously view it and understand it from that perspective, from that kind of unbiased stance, I don't agree. And I think she is misconceptualizing what feminism is in order to create this dichotomy, in order to say that their tradwives and girl boss feminists are one half each of the same coin, just different heads. So in her perspective, she does this thing, like I said, that I really hate, which is the conflation of girl bossness with feminism itself and modernity, and what modern women and modern feminists seem to want. Essentially, it's the idea that women want this ascension, that we all want to be CEOs and the top of our business. And she makes a legitimate point here that attributing essentially your self-worth to a job is just as pernicious as attributing it and tying it to a man, because circumstances happen. You could get fired, you could fall ill, you could become disabled, and in a sense you would lose that. So forming your identity as a boss babe is just as fragile and unstable as relying on a man, because men obviously can leave, they could die, they could be disabled as well. Situations happen, in which case there's validity to that, to not associating and tying yourself and your identity and just the entirety of who you are and your worth to any one particular role. So I think she's right in that sense, that being just a boss babe is potentially harmful. But people don't understand that that's not the goal of every feminist. Feminism is not an economic system. It's informed by capitalistic necessity, in the sense that we have to live within the confines of this current society. And in that sense, we have to succeed in this capitalistic system if we want to be able to have certain freedoms. That's unfortunately what's happening. So in this current structure of our society, which places high value on career growth and ascension and that kind of leadership position, managerial position where you are in charge and the leader, and value as a person is tied to that, in a sense, whereby other people value you and see you as valuable if you have a certain level, if you've attained a certain level of achievement in a business, if you have a certain income, per se, if you have a defined role. So I think this is sort of demonstrative of feminism operating within the confines of the capitalistic system, whereby if that's what success means and has been categorically deemed what success looks like for men, feminism won in a sense and opened up the possibility for women to, break the glass ceiling and to attain that level of worth as well. It's just the possibility that we can do what men do, but that's not necessarily saying that it's good for anyone. It's not good for men either to tie their worth to jobs and your career, essentially. A lot of people do find worth and value if they do something that they enjoy, and being able to say, like, yeah, I worked really hard and now I'm, financially stable. I can support myself. I'm doing great work. And to me, self-esteem and a lot of self-worth revolves around this feedback loop whereby the effort that you put in is directly proportional to the amount that you're getting out, to the benefits that you see. So whatever you define as your source of worth, it is the system in which you feel like you're getting the benefit that equates what you put into it. So when I was young, it was grades, because I put in grades and I was able to see directly the benefit of that. I worked hard, I get an A. It directly correlates. So it creates this immediate gratification and feedback loop. And for some people, that self-worth is derived from other areas in which you can demonstrably get that loop and see that reward be very defined. So in that sense, career ascension could be that. You have a number, in a sense. You have an income which could correlate to the amount that you work. It doesn't obviously work that way entirely because systems are not meritocratic, just saying. But for a lot of people, they do feel like they want to be in a situation, in a job, in a career, in a company whereby their work is seen and rewarded. So if that happens, then it is easier to kind of fall for that sense of, this is where my self-worth is now coming from. It's coming from my job, because if I put myself into my job and I see myself and my identity as inextricably linked to my job and my success there, then I see myself as worthy because I'm doing something well, and I'm being rewarded for it. My income goes up, I get promoted. So it's supporting that feedback loop of self-worth. So that's why I think a lot of people feel inclined to be boss babes or, career women, that kind of mentality. It's because the system that we're currently living in supports that, and it adopts that kind of mentality and inculcates it into us, whereby this is where your self-worth is derived within the context of capitalism. So I think it's bad for both men and women, and I think the only thing that feminism is associated with is the fact that it opened the glass ceiling. Not entirely, again, not meritocratic. There's still innumerable issues with, HR and harassment and unfair promotional systems and discrimination, things like that. But the thought of having that equality and having the ability to ascend is newer, obviously, than what it was for men. So I guess that kind of creates an image, a successful career woman, it's the pantsuits of the 80s and 90s. It's showing up and having the ability to rise and to have your work rewarded. So it is compelling, and that narrative feels good, but it's not feminism's fault that women are pushed into that situation. Feminism just opened the door or broke the ceiling, and women kind of just flooded into it as a result of the necessities of, financial stability and seeking self-worth and capitalism, because women don't really have as much of a choice. No one has a choice, really. It's capitalistic systems. We have to work. So for a lot of people, you don't have any other source really of income or self-worth except for your job. It's not feminism's fault. It's to say that and conflate that constantly about the boss babe, it's so frustrating because for conservatives, it's right in their face. The answer starts with a C. It's capitalism. So to blame this continuously on feminism is such a mischaracterization of what it is. It's a misconceptualization, and it proves that these individuals do not have any idea as to what feminism is and what it's won, and what capitalism, in at least America, other places in the world as well, but what it necessitates, what it delineates, and what it forces us to do. So yes, it's bothersome to me that, I don't know, where did the term boss babe originate? Wasn't it, or girl boss? Sorry, girl boss, which is even more demeaning, to use the term girl to discuss and have conversations appertaining to adult women. But regardless, where did that term even come from? Like a 2010s blog? It's like one individual, and then it was just co-opted by people who hate feminism and creating this kind of like, basically it's a straw man. It's taking all these pernicious elements of capitalism and basically saying like, this is what you want, women? This is what you earned. This is what feminism got you. Are you happy now? And, it's a simplistic and incredibly reductive perspective to say like, but of course for people who are, not super conscious or aware of the actualities of life and reality itself, let's just put it that way. I'm not going to use ad hominems here or demean people, but if you're not that cognizant of reality, it seems like a good argument to any person like that. You could say, well, feminism is girl bossism. It's the same thing. No, it's not. It opened possibilities that weren't there before to not rely on men, because she does say and make and agree with, which is, good, that reliance on men entirely for stability and self-worth is pernicious. It is fragile, and it is very unstable as a situation, like I said earlier. So she does recognize that, which is good, but she also then creates that kind of dichotomy where it's like you either rely on your job, which is fragile, or a man, which is fragile. And they like to do that a lot. They like to say feminism says you're not submissive to men, but you're going to be submissive to a boss. That it's just, they're the same thing. It's that false equivalence of like a man who's your husband and submitting to him is the same exact thing as submitting to a boss that could be a man or a woman, but that doesn't have control over the entirety of your life. But they seem to say that it's the same thing, and it's not, just intrinsically, but it's not about submission that was created by feminism that kind of supplanted the submission to husbands. If we're submissive to anything, it's to the dollar, and it's to capitalism and economic necessities. The exigencies of surviving are attaining financial stability and financial independence. So yeah, you could say there's some element of submission there, and it's true because our choice in the matter has been kind of co-opted. Capitalism does reduce freedom in many ways, and it reduces choice. Just ask any creative person. Like, I'll tell you, I want to be an author. I want to stay at home and write books and write poetry. But because I don't earn money from it, and because no one buys my stuff and listens at all to any of this stuff that I say, it's not an opportunity. It's not a financial decision that's possible, really. It's not an attainable reality that I could do this solely. So because of that need, those necessities of living a decent life, you're pushed into getting a career, and you're pushed into doing something that you probably don't really want to do, or at least don't love. Some people, that's not the case, but for a lot of like creative people, unfortunately, that's sort of how it goes. You have your main job, and then you have your hobby, which is actually what you really want to do, and that's a whole other conversation about how you eventually try to work your way up to financial stability in the hobby, so then you can supplant your 9 to 5 with reliance on that hobby alone solely. So it sucks. It does suck, and capitalism is the one at fault, though, that says you don't have that choice. You don't have that freedom to do whatever it is you want to do, because true freedom that intersectional feminism earns would be like, be a stay-at-home mom, work a 9 to 5, be an author, be an artist, be a musician. It's opening up the doors for equal opportunity, regardless of gender identity or sex. Essentially, that's foundationally, at least in my interpretation. I know everyone has kind of differences in that sense, but to me, that's what intersectionality is about, and feminism is about. It's just evening the playing field. It's equitable, in a sense, doing whatever is necessary to ensure that everyone is starting from equal opportunity to rise on the basis of their own desires and capabilities. It's true meritocracy in that sense, and it's also opening up the possibility and the opportunity to do what you want to do in accordance with your own desires and self-interest. So that's what it means to me. Not every feminist agrees with that, obviously, but it's just that capitalism is the one at fault that filters that freedom. So to say it's feminism's fault is not looking at the underlying cause. It's looking at perhaps a straw man, an easy straw man that they like to blame, without looking at the truth underlying it. It's like, it's that pernicious basis for what's truly wrong. And it's capitalism. It is the fault of capitalism that's supplanted our right to have true opportunity, true meritocracy, and true choice. So yeah, it's just about avoiding impecuniosity. Basically, it's saying you have to do this. And I guess some people in their interpretation of feminism is saying, if I have to do this, I want the same opportunities as men to succeed. It's making the best out of a terrible situation, basically. It's saying we are all trapped in this capitalistic nightmare. So if that's going to be the case, might as well dominate it. Might as well try my hardest to have, to take advantage of whatever opportunity I have available to me, and to be the best at it that I possibly can. So with regards to the capitalistic nature of this, it's basically saying, like, if I have to do this, I want to do this with equal opportunity to men. That's all that feminism is saying within the confines of a capitalistic narrative and system. It's saying, just give me that same opportunity to rise, to be promoted, to earn the same, and to have, maternal rights, childcare rights, things like that, not be discriminated against, things of that nature that are concomitant with being a woman in the workforce. And I think that's the origination of this girl bossism. It's saying it's the feminism, kind of a capitalistic feminism. It's grabbing capitalism by the reins and making it work for women as well, because men have it easier to enter into that, and they've had, decades of it prior to be able to have those higher roles and have the network and the family generational wealth and status to be able to help kind of accelerate their rise and their ascension. So for women coming into this decades ago, just far more recently, it's saying we want that opportunity too. So girl bossism is basically, to my understanding, it's taking the narrative and saying, fine, we will support women that have to do this, and we want them, if they're going to do it well, and to have those opportunities and to be successful if they want to be, to have the right and the opportunity to be as successful as a man. If they are just as capable of a man, they should have the same rights and ability to see the direct result of their labor, of that worth. Essentially, they should be able to have that effective feedback loop whereby the effort that you put in is proportional to the benefit that you see as a result. And for a lot of women, it's not the case, and it hasn't been the case because of all the things that I listed and outlined prior that are unfortunately concomitant with trying to rise the corporate ladder when that ladder was set and created and built by men. It's integrating into a system which had already existed prior to our ability to enter into it. It's not built for us. It just inherently wasn't. So it's harder to climb a ladder that doesn't take our specifications into account. Sorry, engineer, talk about specifications and dimensions and things a lot, but it's just not built or created with us in mind. So there are issues like childcare and daycare and pregnancy discrimination and maternal leave and things like that that have to be discussed when you're talking about career women. And to me, that's what a boss babe should be taking on as their mantle of discussion, is this issue that's preventing the ascension of women who are trying to do an amazing job. It's the encouragement of women who are trying but still can't rise because of the patriarchal foot on our necks. It's that to me is what Boss Babe is trying to do, is trying to carve out opportunity and success within capitalism. It's the same opportunity as men. If we're both going to be leashed and collared by the neck because of corporations and capitalism, at least we want it to be equal. We don't want to have our collars be tighter than those of men. We want to have at least the same freedoms, the same rights to climb that ladder, the same ease of which to climb it. Though that to me is what boss babe mentality truly is. It's not about telling women this is what you have to do and submit to now, that this is your reality. It's not saying, as in opposition to trad wifery, which is saying your husband is the dominant and now it's just sorry, I live in a city, interruptions are going to happen, but it's not about equivocation on this matter. It's not about saying they're equal in any capacity. It's not feminism saying submit to your boss and that's what you have to do now. It's either stay at home or work for your boss and be submissive to them. It's truly trying to earn equality and rights within the system that's now dominant, and the sole system of attaining worth and value and stability and the right to live without fear, live without being impoverished, live in a way that you want to, with certain freedom to take vacations or spend your money, having enough income to be able to spend it on more frivolous things. That earning, we want the ability to have that. If we have to live in this system, we have the right to do it well, to do it just as well as men. That to me is all boss babes are, and that's all they're fighting for, and that's all that they were trying to say and do. So taking that and kind of morphing it and misconstruing it as being the sole kind of underlying foundational meaning and goal of modern feminism as a whole, that the gestalt of modern feminism is corporate ascension, is just completely mendacious. It's just incorrect. There's so much more to it, more intrinsic underlying complexity and economic kind of complications that limit what feminism can do. And feminism is not an economic system. It's arguing for equality within the context of the existing economic system. So, yeah, true freedom doesn't exist. I wrote like a poem or a statement about freedom not really being free when I was like in 6th grade, and it's still true because it's not. And it's an unfortunate reality, but choice doesn't fully exist for the vast majority of us. We don't get that choice. So it's unfortunate, and feminism, it can't offer us true economic freedom because it isn't an economic system in and of itself. It's not saying follow feminism and you'll be free from the necessities of life. You can suddenly, like, the promises of feminism aren't saying you can suddenly like live well, by not engaging in these patriarchal systems that were created and enforced by men. It's not saying that per se. I mean, would it be great if feminists could actually wield sufficient power to be able to take down these massive systems and reconstruct it in a way that's truly equitable? I mean, sure, but right now we have enough problems trying to achieve sufficient equitability within what patriarchy has created. So, intersectional equality, by the way, it's hard enough as it is to take advantage of the situation that we're in. And feminism can't solve that. Feminism is limited by grander systems, by systems that are older and just more puissant, in a sense, than feminism is currently as a movement. So, yeah. So, where am I going with this? Basically, in conclusion, it's not about saying all women have to be boss babes in order to feel fulfilled, because even though her data is completely incorrect and based on a very limited study, and by the way, with regards to surveys, they are the least rigorous with regards to data and the presentation of data in general. So you really should be a little bit more wary, just as a side note, about any kind of academic paper, supposed paper or research done that is literally just a survey of like a couple thousand people. It is extremely limiting, and it cannot be scaled up in that sense to represent a grander trend within a population. You can't do that. It's a very, very limiting kind of situation that doesn't represent academic rigor. So just take all surveys with a grain of salt. You need a heck of a lot of people engaging in the survey in order for it to have veracity and to truly represent the population that they're professing to. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, so a survey about loneliness, everyone's lonely. Like, regardless of what economic system you like, regardless of what social movement you're a part of or not a part of, you're gonna kind of be lonely. Like, just, I don't know, unfortunately, it just seems like capitalism and our current societal structure breeds loneliness. And it's not feminism's fault to say that being alone and the prioritization of, of economics and economic freedom and financial gain is going to cause, this loneliness. So I do take umbrage with that. I don't think there's necessarily a correlation there. She did not prove that. Her evidence does not suggest that in the slightest. But even so, people are going to be unhappy if you associate and intrinsically tie your self-worth to any one thing. If it's a person, that's bloody dangerous. And if it's a job, that's also dangerous. It's just the attribution of worth to one thing is going to hurt in the end. So that doesn't really have much to do with loneliness. It's just about self-fulfillment and the ability to be happy with yourself and the life that you're living. And a lot of people do profess that level of unhappiness, and people will attribute it to, anything in the kitchen sink. And a lot of people do blame feminism for that as well, saying, oh, women were happier in these prior decades and they're not happy now, or they regret focusing on a career and pushing back motherhood and getting married and finding a partner. And firstly, I again doubt the veracity of those proclamations. I need to see proper studies being done and proper evidence to suggest that, because I haven't seen it, if it does exist. But regardless, I do think that the prioritization of ascension in a career is pernicious and it is problematic. And yeah, at the end of your life, what did it get you? What is your worth? What is your value? Where did it come from? It is a question that a lot of people ask. It's a deep philosophical question. What is the meaning of life? Like, it is a stereotypical question that people ask. But the thing is, no one really has an answer. And the answer is just in what brings you joy and happiness. And I don't know. It's different for everybody. It looks different for everyone. So trying to inject or project essentially your perception of worth onto someone else isn't going to work. So if you say, well, being married with kids is my worth, it's my legacy, it's what's going to outlive me when I'm gone, that's fine. If that's your conceptualization of self-worth, if that's what you want to tie it to is family, then fine. If you're happy in the end with that as being your decision, which some people who follow that path are, and there are people that are not, and you do have to take that into consideration. I don't think enough people are cognizant of that facet of society that followed what they were taught is the line to success, a pathway to success and true happiness, and were misled. But yeah, unfortunately, a lot of what people find happiness in can only be achieved if they have the money to do it. Like I said about the hobby becoming your true job, or just being able to go on vacation or travel or do any of these other things that could give you value to yourself and to your life. It has to be earned first, unless you're privileged enough to be able to just have access to it. But it has to be earned in capitalistic systems. So if that's the case, we should have equal access and equal opportunity to be able to achieve that level whereby we can then find value in other things. We have the time to find value in hobbies. We can invest in hobbies as being more than just hobbies, or we can, ride our nest egg into the future while we write our poetry books. It's difficult to say what you're going to find value. And I kind of talked about this in my child-free video, because if your self-worth is not derived from family and children, then what is it? And, it's a valid question, but some people say it's the job. And yeah, that could be problematic. I'm not denying the reality of that. Again, associating it with family can also be pernicious. And I think a lot of people don't recognize that enough, that if your self-worth is tied to your children and you live vicariously through them and their successes, that's also putting your worth in the hands of someone else and someone's life that you cannot and should not control. So that's also very damaging. It's damaging to more people than just yourself in that case. So yeah, it's going to be hard to find worth and happiness in life if you don't have that financial freedom. So that's why boss babes exist. it's why a lot of people find worth in jobs, or, the people that don't find satisfaction in jobs, they find it in other things. And there's value to say that hobbies and true passions, and even traveling, because people always talk about like, oh, they just don't want to have kids because they want to travel. It could be valuable to them, and it could give them and enrich their lives and give their life that meaning that in the end, they look back and they don't regret that gave their life meaning. And that was where their self-worth was derived, from a myriad of different things, a kind of combination, in a sense, an amalgamation of various different things. Career successes, being able to have money to be stable, but then also being able to pursue passions on the side and maybe also have a family. Like, it's not exclusive. Those things are not mutually exclusive. It's not one or the other. Again, it's a false dichotomy. But yeah, I do think there's a problem with saying your self-worth is based on that ascension, but that's inculcated by capitalism, not feminism. And it's hard to find worth, and finding worth in family is not the easy way out that a lot of people think that it is. Your worth shouldn't be tied to other people, and it shouldn't be tied to your job. So that's a difficult philosophical question, but it's not one for feminism to answer. It's not feminism's fault that you have to work. Sorry. It's not feminism's fault that you have to kind of give up passions and dreams to be financially stable. It is not feminism's fault that you can't just live off of one income, and that if you want to choose to be a housewife, you don't get that choice. It's not feminism's fault. And I think that's the takeaway that I want people to have from this, from the 0 people that are watching this. It's that it's not attributable to feminism itself. Feminism is a very limited concept because of the structures that exist over it, the scaffolding under which it is confined, essentially. So yeah, try to find, I don't know what the point of this is. I don't know what the main takeaway is outside of just don't blame feminism. But yeah, I don't have any philosophical thing to say about trying to find your self-worth. Just try not to tie it so intrinsically to one thing, because any one thing can fail. And especially something that you do not have control over, because it can hurt you in the end, that you don't have the ability to control how you feel about yourself, and the derivation of your worth shouldn't be inextricably linked to something that can go wrong, without you doing anything wrong, if that makes sense. Again, feedback loop. You want your efforts to be rewarded in turn, but for some people it's the jobs and it's success of children are the conduit through which they can see that, tangibly have evidence of their work paying off. And that's great, but it can't be the sole source, because you can't control it. So yeah, it's easy for me to say. I have another video about self-worth that I made. I don't know if I'll ever post it, but it's about my problems with associating my self-worth with how men perceive me, and if they like me or not. Yeah, I have a legitimate problem, and it's the whole discussion on decentering men. I think that's innately what that discussion is about, not attributing self-worth to men's perception of you, and not revolving your entire life and universe around what they think. And again, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. It's a terrible mindset to have. Trust me, it sucks. So yeah, I want to end this on a positive note. So yeah, I think in conclusion, I want people to be happy and satisfied with their life, and find that true happiness and fulfillment and their self-worth, and the true derivation of self-worth. Just don't tie it to hating feminism or blaming feminism for things that it didn't cause. That's my one. Yeah, so don't do that. Try to understand the true complexity of the situation. Stay thoughtful. Stay compassionate. and empathetic to people whose lives and choices differ from yours. And yeah, stop blaming feminism. Blame capitalism. So yeah, please just try to be a little bit more intellectually curious about what's truly causing harm in your life. It's not women, it's not boss babes, and it's not feminism. Thanks for watching.